Now, we spoke about how we plan our events. One very good thing to remember when you're doing event planning is your documentation. Write things down. We cannot rely on our memory all the time. Life happens, sometimes we get distracted. And of course, remember, you're not planning alone. More often than not, you have others working with you. So it's important to write things down so that others can also have that information as well, and it keeps everybody informed. So, a simple thing to do is to ensure you have a checklist. The checklist will itemize all those things that you want to include on the day. So you want to ensure that you have all of these components documented, and of course you're able to go back and check it to ensure that there's nothing left off. And of course, that will help you in staying organized, and if anything is missing, you can quickly add it and bring yourself up to speed. So, for the simple checklist, you just do a table. And so looking at the presentation, you will see there's a simple table that would itemize the task, the description of each task, the person responsible, the status. And the status is important because what you're simply saying, this is a working document. It's not just to write it and put it down to keep and care. You know how I'm sure some of you do with those subjects that you don't like? You take all the notes in class, but you don't go back and study. That's not what we are doing here with your plan. You're going to go back, you're going to check your plan, and so once you would have prepared this plan, your template would have been blank in terms of the status. Another column you'd have there is the next steps. Under status, you're going to say whether the activity is completed or where it's at, what has been accomplished so far. So it's not just to have it on the sheet, but to say what has happened. Again, it keeps you organized. And for next steps, you're simply saying, this is what I have done. Now what is next? What is supposed to happen? For example, what if you chose an outdoor venue for your event, but then there is a natural disaster that happened, right? Rain is, there's a rainy season or something comes up that is not expected, and so you have to make adjustments. Now, yes, you would have checked out your venue, you would have done your site visit, you're sure it's okay, but now that the event has come up, this activity has come up, you have to make changes. What are you going to do? You may have to find another venue. So you have to ensure that you include things like that in your checklist. So what does your checklist include? And there are 18 things listed here, 18 parts listed here on the presentation. The date of the event, the theme of the event, your budget, your booking of the venue, your site visit, because yes, you chose the venue. You probably reserved the venue, but you need to ensure you go and do the site visit. The site visit is where you go in, you look at the space and ensure that all components of the space meet the requirements for your event. What is in the space, what you will need to bring in the space, what you would need to take out, all the adjustments that you would need to make, because this will also influence your decor, right? Which is one of the items on your checklist. You need to think about your guest list. Who will be there? It's not sufficient to just call people and say, oh, I want you to come, especially if you're having a formal event. Make a list. Even if it is informal and you're going to be calling persons, ensure you make a list. You don't want to offend anybody by leaving them out, right? So you don't, and you also don't want to invite people only to realize, oh, this is not the event for that person based on their lifestyle and preferences. So it's important to make a guest list that you can go back and you can check. Invitations, confirmations, floor plan, speakers and presenters if that is needed, your catering, your schedule of activities. Your schedule of activities is simply what will happen on the day. Your entertainment, media, and nowadays it's not just traditional media, you also need to think about social media, right? Because a lot of the events that young people are having are more informal, they're more casual, and so they don't necessarily require all that comes with traditional media. But social media is very critical, so you need to think about what kind of media you will have. You need to think about your security. Security is an important component of every event. because you're securing your guests, you're securing your space, you're securing your tools of the trade. You need to ensure that you have security. You're securing the staff. Also, you need to consider parking. It's not sufficient to say, oh, the space can hold 100 people without thinking about where these 100 people will park when they get to the venue. And although you're thinking about all of those things, do not forget your post-event activities. You would have invited these persons, you would have planned for them, they came and they had a wonderful time. But it's important to think about the post-event activities. What happens after the event? So, do you have bills that you still need to pay? Do you need to send out thank you notes to the persons that you invited? You need to think about all your post-event activities, and that is included on your checklist. What you do will be dependent on the type of event. Now, on your screen, you are seeing a part of a completed checklist. So it is showing you those same components I just spoke about in terms of the task. It gives you a full description of each task, persons responsible, and it gives you the status of these activities. So for example, here I'm picking up the booking of the venue. So as a task, so the description would say, select and reserve venue. Who is responsible? Mary Sue. What is the status? That is done. Once that is done, it tells you that your venue is secure, because you cannot send forth your invitations until you have that, because therefore, where will your guests go? So you have to bear in mind what activities need to take place pre-event in the planning stages, and so on. You'll hear more about this when we talk about the event cycle. So, the event cycle has 4 stages. And the four stages, the biggest part of that is the planning, and that is what we would have been talking about so far. Most of what I've said had to do with the planning. Planning is the first step in the event cycle. You plan the activity, you also need to promote the activity if it needs to be. Again, promotion depends on the type of activity. You certainly would not be promoting your private Christmas dinner at home with just your family. At least not in the same way you would promote your Sweet 16 or the community picnic. How do you promote the family Christmas dinner? If it is that you're inviting other relatives, part of your extended family, then you need to reach out and let them know what is going to be taking place at your home and you'd like them to come. So that would be promoting as well, but just more informal. Then you also need to consider the at-event activities. What is to take place on the day, because the at-event activities actually influence greatly what you would have planned, because you want to see your plan comes through, and you also want to ensure that your guests are going to have a wonderful time. I get excited when I plan events, and the biggest part of it is that what experience will people leave with, right? I want to ensure that when they leave an event that I would have been responsible for, all they're talking about is the experience they had. And then, at the event, we spoke earlier when I spoke about the checklist, a critical component after. What is that? That's right, the post-event. Remember to say thank you. People's time is quite valuable, and you want to ensure that if persons take the time to spend it with you, you're sharing your gratitude. And of course, bearing in mind that if it is of something that you would have promoted where you're earning, of course, it's saying to persons, hey, you know, I had a good time, and they also remember to say thanks. I would go to another event that they're having, right? So you want to ensure that you bear that in mind. Now, at this time, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we will talk about the roles and responsibilities of the organizing team.